I went into this movie giving it the biggest benefit of the doubt because it actually had to be a lot of different things. It's another installment in the series. So effectively, it's acting as Halloween 12. It also has to be a sequel to the 2018 version. It also has to be the middle part of a trilogy. And it also ends up being a semi-remake of the original Halloween 2. So it was already burdened with a lot of hats to wear.
I really wanted to be in this movie's corner. But,
Greetings, loyal listeners and new recruits. I'm Drew Deitch.
I'm Travis Newton.
And this is GenreVision.
GenreVision is a weekly movie club where we discuss horror films, action movies, fantasy flicks, sci-fi cinema, and more.
And we continue our celebration of Halloween month with the new release Halloween Kills, the sequel to Halloween 2018. Travis and I both watched this on the Peacock streaming service, and I am a big booster of these same day and date releases in theaters and on streaming. I'm very happy that Universal went that route with this movie, and I encourage that y'all see it that way if you can. So Halloween Kills, hearing that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, the Rough House gang, essentially Rough House Pictures, we're all going to be back behind this and doing Halloween Kills, and then eventually Halloween Ends, was like, okay, well, they had their big success. They really got what I find interesting and fundamental about the heart of Halloween as a story, as a franchise and characters and all that kind of stuff. And now they're probably going to have a lot more free reign to do stuff that kind of chase their particular interests more.
Sure.
About and their relationship with the movies and the characters and the ideas and stuff. And I can say I think that is present in Halloween Kills. I do think that they got to chase what they wanted to do with Halloween Kills. And one of the things that they wanted to do, and this is the vibe I get from the movie, I don't know if they've spoken about this at all. The vibe that I got was, after being reverent to the first movie in a way that was that they knew they were treading dangerous ground, they have a safety blanket now. And now they're like, well, now we can really cut loose and have fun.
Sure. And there is one big change that we haven't talked about, and it's something that I think will be largely invisible to most people, and that there's been a change on the writing team for Halloween 2018. Alongside David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, we had a guy named Jeff Fradley. Jeff Fradley is not credited with any writing on Halloween Kills, and instead there is a guy named Scott Teems who has been credited with writing on Halloween Kills. Scott Teems is a filmmaker. He is also like one of Blumhouse's go-to guys. So if you look at his IMDb page, he's got Halloween Kills, Firestarter, which is Blumhouse picture, and then The New Exorcist. Evidently, he looks to be having a story credit on the new Exorcist movie directed by David Gordon Green for Blumhouse. Now, this kind of thing says a few things behind the scenes. It says that, like, okay, Scott Teems is kind of like their house guy that they have a lot of confidence in. And Halloween Kills had the unfortunate position of being ready to release a year ago. This has been on the shelf for a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big COVID casualty, as many movies were, and we won't get into specifics yet, but it is very apparent that this was a 2020 movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's definitely some political messaging and theming that we'll get into once we open up the spoilers. So really what this is at the start, with trying not to spoil this movie, this is a direct continuation of the previous film. Spoilers ahead for the previous film, Halloween 2018. So at the end of the previous film, Michael Myers is trapped inside the basement of Laurie Strode's burning house, which is revealed to be this like grand trap that she had set up to trap and burn him alive. As far as Laurie Strode knows, she has accomplished that goal by the end of Halloween 2018. And at the beginning of Halloween 2021, or Halloween Kills rather, she still believes that Michael Myers has been trapped inside the house and killed. But the movie starts off on something different. It actually picks up with a character we hadn't seen since like the middle of the previous film, and that is Allison's boyfriend, who is still dressed in drag from the Halloween dance.
Who I believe was actually he was pretty much forgotten about in 2018, but that was because there's a deleted scene of him getting killed.
Perhaps, but whatever the case may be, he kind of disappears from the previous film halfway through after it's revealed that he's a douchebag. And he shows up in the first scene of this movie and comes across the body of another character from the previous movie.
Well, here's the, talking about plot things. I don't know what people consider spoilers. So, we got to be very careful how we tread here, because you say that it's like, oh, this is a direct, it's like the original Halloween 2, where it's picking up from, where we left off. Eventually, yes, it is.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. The movie has some other things it wants to do beforehand with regards to like setting things straight as far as canon and like what happened. There is a sequence I didn't expect, but there is somebody that I was surprised and delighted to see, and that's the actor filmmaker Jim Cummings, the guy who made Wolf of Snow Hollow and also Thunder Road. And he's also got something called like the Beta Test. I think it's coming out soon.
Yep.
But he was really great in Thunder Road. He was incredible in Wolf of Snow Hollow, and that movie was quite good as well. And he plays cops in both of those movies, so it comes as no surprise that he actually plays a cop in this movie. So I was pleased to see him. That was nice.
Sure.
But like once the movie gets everybody like up to speed on what has, transpired since the end of the last film, the movie then becomes, in a lot of ways, a structural homage to Halloween 2, where our main characters of the franchise are kind of sidelined, and the rest of the movie is placed upon the shoulders of all these peripheral characters, and they have to carry the movie.
I don't think this is a spoiler because it's been in the marketing, but a big subplot of this movie is that Haddonfield kind of reacts to Michael Myers. They decide to get together and try and stop him, and they're led by Anthony Michael Hall, who plays Tommy Doyle, the boy that Laurie was babysitting in the first movie, who's also popped up before, played by Paul Rudd.
Yep.
And I'm not going to talk about the specifics of the scene, but the point being that he rallies a couple of the other survivors from the first movie, essentially, including Lindsay, who was the girl that was also being babysat. I unfortunately cannot remember the character's name, but the actress Nancy Stevens, who was the nurse, like Loomis's nurse pal in the original movie, she's back again. They brought her back for H2O as well.
Yeah, she's the one who's in the car in the original Halloween, and then the hand comes down and smashes the car window behind her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways, but the point being that's a subplot, that there is a posse, a vigilante gang of Haddonfield residents that are going to try and chase Michael and take him down himself. So that's going on. There is also returning to particular locations. I don't think this will be a spoiler either, but that the Myers house plays a role in this, and that's been in the marketing. They're talking about, if you look at where he's going, he's heading home and stuff like that. And I don't think this is a spoiler. Maybe we'll get into the specifics of it more. But one of the big things that Halloween Kills is trying to do is, in some way, it is trying to explain Michael Myers, or better yet, the Shape.
Kind of. Yeah. It is, again, attempting to open up the motivations and the sort of mechanisms behind Myers's whole existence, really. Like what he does, why he does what he does. Because like in Halloween 2018, there were, of course, things that became the source of like fan debate. Like, well, how did Michael know to do this? And why was he doing this? And for me, and I think probably you as well, all of this shit is better left as questions than as answers.
Well, I mean, this is, in a lot of ways, this comes back around to, I think the best comparison, I'm not just saying this because it's me, to Michael Myers is the shark in Jaws. It's like, this is just its nature. It swims, it eats, it makes baby sharks. Michael Myers walks, stalks, tricks, and kills.
Yes.
Like that's it. That's all.
And he sets up tableaus. He's kind of an artist.
Yeah, well, he's the spirit, the evil spirit of Halloween.
Sure.
He's got his displays. That's fine. That's great. I don't need to know why he does that. He just does that.
Sure.
And that's great. And there are great moments like that, jack-o'-lantern decapitated head. They knew it was such a good image, they had to put it in Halloween Kills again.
Oh yeah.
They had to because again, this is taking place on the same night, so they find that as well.
One long night, man. Woof.
Yeah. But that kind of stuff is like, okay, cool. I got no problem with that because that's in the original movie. Michael likes to put on a ghost costume with glasses on the outside. Like, great.
Another thing that we have to understand about this movie, like in talking about what is this movie, is that this movie was conceived as a middle movie and a trilogy.
Sure. So again,
and originally they were going to shoot this movie, Halloween Kills, and a third movie, Halloween Ends, back to back. That was my original understanding.
Yes, that's how, COVID screwed that all up.
And it's also my understanding that the screenplay for Halloween Ends was only recently completed.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what happened there. There was some kind of change of plans.
Yeah. So, obviously the pandemic threw things into disarray for everything, including movie production. And this was a casualty not only in release, but also in production. And so who knows? But I that was another element of me giving it the benefit of the doubt, was that going in, it's the middle part of a trilogy. So in a lot of ways, I'm going in knowing that this is an incomplete movie, or not an incomplete movie, I should say, an incomplete story, because The Empire Strikes Back is an incomplete story, and it's, the best Star Wars is the original Star Wars, but The Empire Strikes Back is a masterpiece. Like, people, and it's garnered its love appropriately, and that is an incomplete story. So it shows that can be done in a satisfying way. So that was something else that Halloween Kills had to do. And then you have this other layer of, well, it's part of a trilogy, and we have this very weird relationship with movie trilogies in America.
Mm-hmm.
So that adds another layer of like, well, what exactly does it need to accomplish? It means that it's going to set things up for another movie. So what is it setting up?
Yeah. There's also the expectation that the second movie in a trilogy will be more. It'll be more of what you liked from the first film. So it's looking at, audience reaction and sort of like fan reception and going like, what did people really enjoy? And what can we do more of that will make this movie more appealing? Will make it feel like an amplification of the previous film. And it is in some ways an amplification of some of the things that happened in the prior film.
Well, that seems to be evident in the title, in terms of what they believe people wanted more of. Halloween Kills is kills. And we'll get into specifics when it comes to the spoiler territory of that.
By the way, bad title.
Very bad title. But in my review that I wrote for work, I mentioned this, in that in the absence of Jason Voorhees being, present at the movie theater, it feels like there was a desire to make Michael the new Jason Voorhees in this movie. Now, granted, the 2018 version certainly was interested in having big violent kills, which the original, while the kills are violent, they're relatively bloodless, if not, wholly bloodless for many of them. But, the 2018 version wanted to do it, and it had some great, memorable moments of violence and ones that I enjoyed. And Halloween Kills seemed to be like, well, time for more kills. And without getting into specifics, I will say that, yes, the conceptualization of many of the kills here are extremely gory. Certainly for a mainstream release.
Yeah, conceptually they are like big and violent and like extreme, and there's a lot of it. There's a sense in this movie that Michael Myers is on a rampage, that this is not a calculated sort of like killing off of a few people like we saw in prior films. This is more like fuck everybody. And
we saw it in the prior film. The prior film has the fantastic sequence of Michael walking through the neighborhood and just going into different houses and killing people. And just killing the people he's kind of coming across.
Right. But there's a sense in that Michael is more discerning.
Well, sure, he doesn't kill kids. That's always been a thing. That's from the original. Like, he runs into Tommy at school in the original and stops him, but he doesn't kill him. So these things have been present. And that's certainly in the 2018 one. Some kids bump into him and they're like, hey, whoa, watch it. And he just kind of gives them his spooky stare and then decides to walk into somebody's house and stab a lady in the throat.
Sure.
So that idea of, if you're in Michael's path and you're a grown up, you're fair game. And again, I will say conceptually, there are kills in this movie that I like. Again, this is in the marketing, so I don't consider it a spoiler. The idea of Michael versus a team of professionals, in this case, firemen, is like, that is silly, but it's silly I could get on board with.
Sure, totally.
Depending, you know? So the movie clearly wants to do stuff like that. And I think that's one of the, you know, because with these slasher characters, you have to ride a fine line of, they are our antagonist, they're the villain, but they're also the hero in the audience's eyes in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like
they're the character they're coming back to see every time.
Exactly. So I can understand and appreciate that balance of like, well, yeah, I want to like see Michael kill 5 firemen all at once with the tool, you know, they're more than ready to kill a regular person, but this ain't a person. This is the shape.
Right.
So, you know, there's stuff like that in the movie, which again, on paper, I can get on board with. But you know, it's very, very difficult to talk about this movie without, one, spoiling specific things about it, and two, spoiling our overall feelings about it. So I think before we cross the spoiler wall, I do think we can kind of give a general read on our feelings about Halloween Kills. And there's no way to say this that's not going to come across as grandiose. I am shocked at how much I disliked Halloween Kills.
It's bad. This was a sore disappointment. And the trailer that I saw that you kind of initially bristled at, I was like, you know, the footage looks good. And I wasn't really biased against any of the ideas the trailer brought forward. It's like, okay, yeah, the town comes after Michael Myers, and okay, I was like, I get it. You know, I get why they would do that. And I was still looking forward to the movie quite a bit. I would have seen this in the theater. You know, if COVID-19 hadn't been a thing, and this had come out around its intended time, I would have gone to the theater and seen it, and I suspect you would have too.
Oh, absolutely, I would have.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is a reveal here, is that the original Halloween is one of my top 10 favorite movies, like unmovable, like in my top 10. And I've seen every entry in the franchise with the exception of one version of it, of Halloween 6. I've seen every entry multiple times. I love Halloween. I love Michael Myers. If you pit him up against, you know, Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, Chucky, all of them, Michael Myers, The Shape, is my favorite. As
far as I go, Halloween is not one of my top favorite films, but it's great and I like it a lot. And I like most of the Halloween stuff that I've seen.
Yeah, you avoided all the really
exactly. I haven't seen Halloween 5 and 6. There's a lot of stuff in Halloween 4 that I like. Halloween 2, it looks correct, but is otherwise kind of like, you know, all right. I get why they did that. Halloween H2O has its great ideas, and I enjoyed my time with most of those films, even if they aren't great.
Well, if you want to hear more about the Halloween franchise, you can go to patreon.com/GenreVision and become a subscriber for $5 a month, because
we had an extended talk. This.
Yeah. Yes, we talked about the Halloween franchise.
But like it doesn't hold a special place in my heart, is what I'm trying to say. However,
fair enough.
The last movie was a way that like really brought this thing roaring back to life in a way that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And to see this movie as a direct follow-up and a continuation from almost the same exact creative team, to see it botch it so badly is really disheartening. I'm sorely disappointed.
And the only way we can really express those disappointments is by crossing the spoiler wall and talking about specifics, because there is a lot to talk about in this movie. And I'm telling you right now, we're not going to be able to cover it all. We covered some of it in our pre-show episode that has to do more with kind of franchise ties and stuff like that.
Yeah, and some more geeky specifics, yeah.
Yes, but we're crossing the spoiler wall now. We're going to talk about specific things that happen in the movie. It's time to really talk about why I believe Halloween Kills is one of the worst major studio releases of the year, certainly of what I've seen. This is so wrong-headed in nearly every direction. And like we were saying about ideas or concepts that on paper, it's like, okay, that's an interesting jumping off point. There's something interesting there. Every bit of execution of those ideas in this is quite possibly the worst direction you could take it with.
Well, and this is especially disappointing because, you and I going into this film, we're so eager to give it the benefit of the doubt because we thought like, all right, it's a David Gordon Green flick. It's going to be shot well. It'll have some really cool close-ups and like great visual ideas executed in that way. It'll have a good score. We knew that. We thought it would have some decent scares and some like decent tension. We just kind of assumed all this going in because David Gordon Green did it so well in that last one. We thought if he can just do the same stuff he did and deliver on some of those same things, at least there'll be something to like appreciate about the movie, even if other people aren't liking it that much.
Sure.
Lo and behold.
No.
No.
What happened? Because something happened, and it's a matter of when I was talking about this seems to be the entry where it's like, hey, we can get to have fun. I've now seen what their idea of fun is with this, and it's appalling. Like, it's really, really, absolutely. I mean, and maybe it doesn't seem to be just me because the critical reaction to this continues to
plummet,
it seems.
Basically.
And so this movie feels like it was a fan film. Like, and for those, I mean, nowadays fan films have become so legitimized, and I think that's not a good thing, because I remember growing up in the era of when fan films were making the rounds and people were like, why aren't they doing it like this? And yada, yada, yada. And this, to go from the 2018 movie to this and seeing how fan reverence can be interpreted by essentially the same group of people in two wildly different ways is shocking. So like, this movie really kicks off, as you were saying, with the character of Deputy or Sheriff Hawkins, played by Will Patton, who was thought to be killed in the last movie, but they have retconned that nope, he's going to live. And we get a flashback to Halloween night, 1978.
Right. And immediately the movie is off on a rhythmically weird note where it's like, well, hold on. Why was that the opening scene of like Allison's boyfriend just like stumbling along? I'm like, this is not an interesting opening. The imagery is not interesting. These characters aren't interesting. Like, as its own movie, what are you doing?
Sure.
And then we, the boyfriend finds Will Patton's character Hawkins, and then we enter the flashback, Haddonfield, Illinois, Halloween 1978.
Which this is essentially making its own follow-up ending to the first movie, which is like, well, how did Michael get captured? What happened?
So, at the end of the original Halloween, the movie ends with Michael up and walking around, and we hear the breathing. Fantastic ending. What this posits is like, okay, he got up and he walked around and he killed some more people, but then the cops got him. But there's some character development that happens with Hawkins.
It's not even just specifically that he killed people. It's that he went back home. He went back to the Myers house. Yeah. There is this, the opening of this movie is essentially making a statement of, this is Michael's, I can't believe I almost said this. And I'm going to say, it's like, this is my grand design. Like, that is what this movie is getting at. From the very beginning, it is making we're going to try and figure out, why is Michael Myers? And immediately I knew, and I saw this in the trailer too. I called it when I was like, look, when you start trying to figure out what Michael Myers is, you're gonna put a bunch of goddamn hats on your movie. And this movie, as a term I think we've used a couple times before, and I'll explain it again, I believe this movie is a hat mountain.
Yeah, it's a lot of ideas stacked into one movie, and they don't belong mishmashed into this one movie.
Well, it's doubly bad. The hat mountain thing is especially bad in Halloween as a idea, because the greatness of Halloween is in its simplicity, and the 2018 movie understood that.
Yeah, simple, elemental.
Yes, and so it's not just that, oh, there's a bunch of ideas stacked on here. In any movie, that could be very, poor. It's that it makes it more poor because of the type, because of the franchise, because of the story that we're involved in, where it's like simplicity is your greatest asset. And here we have ideas that on their own could be interesting. The mob, let's talk about the mob thing, because that was a big part of the marketing. That was a big story idea. Is like, hey, the mob, the town goes after Michael, which has been done before, but this decides to add an extremely poor idea into the mix.
It's Yeah, and it takes a while to get there, but like the way it starts out is immediately again off kilter. It just the rhythmic nature of it doesn't feel right. It's like tonally, what is happening here? We actually find our way into this bar scene with two characters that were introduced in the previous film, and they were kind of joke characters. It was a couple where one was dressed as a doctor and one was dressed as a nurse, and we see them briefly in the sequence where Michael Myers is walking around in the neighborhood and killing people. So they return, because evidently the filmmakers were sort of enamored with those characters. And, you know, they were fun characters that they introduced in the previous movie. And I like that this movie wants to like its own characters, but it's a little precious for them. Anyway, we soon meet all of the, I think it likes them a little too much and it wants them to be fun, but
it ends up making a joke out of one of them in I think a potentially offensive way.
Yeah, but these characters, they meet Anthony Michael Hall's, character and all the other sort of like callback characters from the first movie. And Anthony Michael Hall gives a speech on stage during a talent show. And it is so poorly written and so ham-fisted and so corny. And I understand they were making a point with this. Then Anthony Michael Hall's character sees a news bulletin like on the TV about how two wackos escaped from the bus on the way from the mental hospital, and they're talking about the events of the first film, and they show the pictures of what could be Michael Myers, and then a picture of the umbrella guy from the opening of the prior movie, and it's like, oh, the umbrella guy, that's a fun in joke, right? No, it turns out the umbrella guy is now a political metaphor. Oh boy.
Well, you were talking about I can't recall the exact terms you just used other than ham-fisted. You could be talking about 95% of the dialogue in this movie. The dialogue in this movie is atrociously bad, like to the point where I couldn't believe that characters were saying it. Like it completely pulled me out of the movie because it is a bunch of, like, you talked about this, I think, on our pre-show, where it's like, it's a bunch of message board armchair philosophy about why is Michael Myers. And the thing is, it's fine to talk about that kind of stuff in like film theory. For a character to say something like, maybe he was thinking about Haddonfield and why he wanted to pull a prank on Haddonfield. In this, there is a pontification about the real reason Michael's doing this is to get our town into an uproar and turn us into monsters. And it's like, dude, not only is that stupid in relation to the character and world that you're talking about, it's just poorly delivered in any situation.
And it's just so groan worthy. The whole idea of like, oh, the umbrella man, who kind of looks like Danny DeVito in Batman Returns. He's running around the town, and we know the whole time, like we've seen the last movie, we know the whole time that this guy's not a problem, right? He's not Michael Myers. And the movie plays these long sequences like he is. And I'm just like, I'm so frustrated. I'm like, this is the fabric, the bulk of your movie. And I know you're wasting my time. I know you're dicking around.
Right. There's so much wheel spinning going on in Halloween Kills. That's one aspect of it. That eventually leads to like, is this trying to make a bigger like 2020 political statement? And I know there was a pickup shot in some of that stuff when I saw a get vaccinated propaganda. Get vaccinated. I'm for this. But the fact that they made a point to make a pickup shot of during a bunch of chaos in the hospital when this mob is chasing poor umbrella guy, thinking he's Michael Myers. There's a shot of a poster saying, vaccinate, do it now before it gets pulled out of focus. And that's the kind of like, look, guys, it's not the message, it's the messenger.
Right. And I understand that. I think most horror, if not all horror, is kind of inherently political. This is something I think I agree with when it comes to like, the filmmakers here, that the idea of this boogeyman terrorizing this small town does have an inherently political take to it, where it's like, who do we decide as our boogeyman? Because politically there are many boogeymen.
If not political, at least socio-political. Like
sure,
it's something that you don't, because as soon as you say political, you are confining yourself to a binary for most people.
Yeah, in America, that's true. Yeah.
Yes. So I actually think just, social commentary or whatever thing you want to say on it. It's like, well, it's bigger than that. It's something bigger. Not for Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills is a binary movie in terms of its political feelings and what it wants to try and get across.
There is one big dividing factor, and that's Michael Myers.
Yes, but it is what they've decided to make, not even Michael Myers, just the idea of Michael Myers to the mob, like what he is to them and how it can, and this whole thing about like, it's like, is it about mental health stigma? Like, whatever point they're trying to make ends up being really stupid because the entire movie never understands the tone it needs to hit.
No, the scares are never scary.
There's never, and there were that whole backyard sensor light sequence in 2018.
Freaky.
Jumped like a fucking baby. Like, it was so great seeing that. In this one, never a jump that ever did anything. Never anything that was framed or presented as, ooh, that's kind of eerie. Nothing. This movie, I don't think wanted to be scary. And if it did, woof, did it drop the ball.
Yeah, it's fucked as far as tone goes, because not only is it not scary, it's full of moments that are trying to make you laugh, and yet it falls on its face. I think everyone, I laughed.
No idea if I laughed.
Maybe once.
I only remember joylessness while watching this movie. So if I laughed, it's been erased from my memory because there's, and as to continue the wheel spinning thing, there's just so many plots in here that as soon as you're in the middle of them, you're like, this is wasting time for a better story. And one of the big ones is that the Myers house now has residents. It's this couple, one of them played by Michael McDonald, and I don't have the other actor's name up, but he's Big John, and he's this stoner. He's playing, spooky records, and they now live in the Myers house.
Right. And they've totally renovated the place to be this like gay haven, basically.
Whatever. Like, yeah. I'm not even going to go so far as that's what they're thinking about in terms of the writers. But the idea is like, okay, there's somebody living in the Myers house now. Now, again, you say that idea to me on a beat card, I'm like, hey, okay, what if somebody was living in the Myers house? Like, what would that do?
And then you think about like what the writers are doing. Like, hey, what if it was like a gay couple who had like totally remodeled the house and like made it unrecognizable? Wouldn't that be funny?
Wouldn't it be fun if one of them was basically Danny McBride?
Sure.
Like to Danny McBride's surrogate, which at least I'm like, well, at least if it would have been Danny McBride, maybe I would have enjoyed it like 0.01% more. But
it's my cat's birthday today.
Yeah, exactly. But but this whole thing where it's like there's this couple living in the Myers house is just a big waste of time because these characters are no ones. Like, they don't have any genuine endearment to us as characters. They're
designed to be gay comic relief, but they're not funny. They're just gay.
No, the thing is, I think the point was to make them like not super stereotypy gay. They were like guys. I don't know. I can't even begin to parse the stupidness of this. But the point being like, hey, guess what? Michael shows up and kills him. And the kills aren't interesting. And there's an extremely dumb moment. I could say that like 15 times throughout this episode where Michael McDonald steps in the room after Big John has been killed. And he's like, Michael, you've come home. And I'm like, what? Why is this character saying this? Like,
yeah, exactly. It's is the screenplay just speaking through him? Like, what's going on?
Because they have this whole moment. There's another idea on paper that I like, which is that a bunch of kids play a trick on them. And then they say like, do you know whose house this is? And Michael Myers. And they tell these very young kids kind of the story of Michael Myers. And it's like later we see those kids and they're being shits. And one of them got killed. I can't believe they didn't kill all three kids. Cause I was like, hey, look, Michael will kill a kid if you're an asshole to his house or like if you disregard some particular rule, some nebulous rule that he has
if
about
you're
Halloween.
old enough. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what it really is. Cause they think he kills the oldest kid in that group.
Yeah.
But the point being that, they disrespected Michael. So they're fair game. But so like Lindsay ends up running into the two kids later and they just run away. And like, they recreate things in this. Like you were talking about,
the wrench smash on the window.
Well, yes, Nancy. Well, it's specifically, they recreate the same shot where he jumps up on the car in the rear view, in the rear windshield that you see. And they even, I think, play that sound like that, whatever sound it is. And that's the kind of like, guys, you were doing your own thing in the last movie. Keep doing your own thing. But this one seems to be so enamored with the fact that it's part of the Halloween franchise that it just keeps layering on things to the point where, and I'm sorry, this cannot come across as anything but mean, and I feel bad saying it, but Charles Cyphers shows up in this movie, who played the sheriff Brackett, who is Annie's dad in the original.
Yes. Yeah, he's a security guard at the hospital in this.
Yes. And he shows up essentially to quote his own line from the first movie during the big climax. And that's where he's like, everyone's entitled to one good scare. And it's awful.
It's so self-aware and gross and makes no sense.
It's just this weird, this is that kind of like wiki article action figure way of handling characters from a property that is so repellent to me.
They're basically just dolls with pull strings on the back where you pull them and they say the thing.
Well, it feels like somebody trotting out their collectible figure. Like, look, we got Charles Cypher. He's mint in box. Like, and
he's not quite mint in
box. Oh, that was the thing I avoided being mean. He ain't mint in box. There, that eBay price is dropping. But
it appears to me that he's had a surgery on his face to probably get rid of skin cancer. So, God bless him. I hope he's okay.
That is across the board, the usage of, like, we get all these characters that come back, like Tommy and Lindsay and Lonnie, who all Lonnie was there for in the original was told to get his ass away from there.
Get your ass away from there. Yeah. And now Lonnie is played by a great actor, Robert Longstreet, who is so good in so many things he's been in recently. He's so good as Joe Colley in Midnight Mass. It's like, and you waste this character for like 4 or 5 scenes and then he dies in like a really unremarkable way, just like,
off screen. Yeah, he dies off screen, and then we just see his corpse. That is part of the thing of this like fan film idea of like, well, let's bring all these characters back so Michael can just kill them. Like, it's this weird thing of like, I just think about when people watch an original movie and come up with these ideas. Like, you're sitting there watching Tommy and Lindsay and Tommy say like, you can't kill the boogeyman, and somebody being like, wouldn't it be cool if like 40 years later Michael killed him? Like, and it's like, what? No, that's
what's poetic about it.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's just like, man, Michael's so badass. He definitely killed that kid once he was 56. Like, and it's like, that's what you think about in terms of story with this. So like every element of that, like bringing this stuff back. And we talked about a very specific element in our pre-show, the reintroduction of Loomis in this, that kind of stuff. It just feels broken from the outset.
There are, again, some good ideas here that were good on paper, but also in like just technical execution fail utterly. Like the ending of the film where like everything sort of quote unquote comes together. It doesn't, nothing comes together here, but the ending sort of being like a montage of like Michael Myers getting back up after getting beaten up by a group of townspeople.
You say beaten up, he is murdered.
He's stabbed to death and like beaten, and
shot, beaten. Like
he gets a full Rasputin pretty much. But look, the fact that like he gets up and like murders a whole bunch of people, like murders characters from the movie, and basically does it in just like montage. They don't even bother to construct like a really like scary or atmospheric sequence out of it. It's just done quickly, and
it looks like a music video.
Yes, it's
and it's not only that it's in montage, it's with awful voiceover from Laurie Strode talking about Michael Myers' fear. Every time he kills, he ascends, he transcends, and that's what he, it gives him his power, and he's the fear that's going to turn us against each other. I'm like, you guys, I don't think you actually know what Michael Myers is. Like, or your idea was like, this is what we're going to turn him into.
It's shocking how many retcons they had to do to kind of like eventually come to this point. It's like, really? You had to do all this fucking narrative gymnastics to get to this? Fuck off.
Well, and the big thing is this is the culmination of my fan film accusation, is that this it misunderstands canon writing, where it's like, okay, you look at the first movie. Michael gets shot 6 times, whatever it is, should kill him. Loomis looks over the balcony. He's gone. Oh, he's something else. He's supernatural. That is perfect. That's the way to showcase this. In this, it's this horrible gaggle of characters that mean nothing now, that these are legacy characters in the town of Haddonfield, whatever, that are now meaningless. They're just there to get mowed down. And the best scene I can compare it to is like the Freddy versus Jason Cornfield massacre, but that's much better in terms of filmmaking. And
yeah, that's actually fun to watch, even though it's deeply stupid, but like it knows it's deeply stupid.
Oh, it's super fun. But conceptually, that's the idea, is like, we're going to have our slasher person just kill a whole bunch of people at once to show like he's the super badass. And it's like, that's not, no. But this moment of Michael getting killed, like if this was a human person, they would be down. This sequence with Michael getting up and knocking everybody off is this like, this isn't, I don't think this is what Michael Myers is. He's not this like, man, I could take anybody, bro. Like guy, like bring them all, like come at me, bro.
He's not Neo. I mean, Jesus.
And the idea of canonizing the supernatural element visually in that way of like, we're gonna gorify him up and kill him and stab him and shoot him and beat him. Nobody could survive this. And then he just stands back up. It's like, that's the bro-y dumb version of the ending of the first movie.
Right. And then they try to do some kind of service to the idea that Michael is a supernatural force by having Karen Strode look up at the window of, Michael's sister's bedroom, and she sees the reflection of young clown costume Michael Myers. And I thought, there's a good idea visually. What it's doing in this moment, I don't know, but it's an interesting idea visually to pay homage to the supernatural nature of Michael Myers that they're clearly playing with here. And then just when the clunky voiceover from Jamie Lee Curtis explains that, like, in a very sort of Freddy Krueger way, that like, no matter where Michael Myers is, like it's really just where the fear is. Like that's where he is. And then of course, as soon as we see Karen Strode have the fear of Michael Myers, he suddenly like teleports into the frame behind her, basically like comes out from behind her and kills her. And this is all in like montage, by the way. It really doesn't get a proper scene of its own. It's nested within a larger sequence that just feels completely devoid of impact.
Well, and this is set up in the flashback opening in which Jim Cummings talks about like, yeah, I used to see Michael as a kid standing at his sister's window, just looking out at, and nobody knew what he was looking out at. It was real creepy. So he, of course, they go right up to that window and he stands right there and looks out and then looks down and sees that, Michael's footprints are there. So boom, he jumps out of the closet and boo. And like, okay, sure, fine, not great, not terrible as a thing. And what that gets around to is like, no. He wasn't looking out. I need some more ham-fisted, wheeled as bluntly as possible voiceover to explain, no, he was looking at his own reflection. And like you say with the clown thing, the idea of what if Michael was standing at a window looking at his own reflection? It's like, that's not a bad jumping off point. There's something there visually. But to combat your positive feeling about the clown thing, my initial reaction was not this is something supernatural. It's like, oh, okay, this is set up for the third movie, and like they're gonna do something with the clown costume in the third movie because they haven't pilfered that yet, and it just feels like that kind of J.J. Abrams storytelling of where it's like, yeah, and C-3PO was there too, like, and it's like, why? It doesn't matter, like. Who cares? What matters is like, yeah, but people know what C-3PO is. So when they see him, they'll be like, hey, that's a thing I know. That is like the big draining feeling I got from Halloween Kills, because it feels like another wiki article movie. It feels like a movie that was designed to create YouTube content of like, here's the 83 things you didn't know were references in Halloween Kills. Whatever potential interesting story was here from some of these ideas are all just quashed in really poor structuring, bad, like meaningless characters that by the end of the film have all been off. And it's like, okay, so you guys were just stepping stone middle movie characters into whatever, into a third movie that the ending's promise is like Laurie and Michael are going to have their final showdown. I'm like, I saw that movie. It was Halloween H2O and then it was Halloween 2018.
Right. And you're not going to do it any better. I'm sorry. You're just not going to do it any fucking better. Yeah. It's at 105 minutes. Why does this movie feel this slow and like vapid and just like meaningless? It's like, This should have been an 80-minute movie. And even at 80 minutes, it still wouldn't be good. I am so disappointed.
It not only goes beyond disappointment, shocking is the word I keep coming back to, because ping-ponging from the 2018 Halloween to this is like, what happened, guys? Like, what happened? Like, and this is always our inclination. It was certainly yours when you were like, something happened to this movie. Somebody fucked with it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think this is it. Like, I think they did this on purpose.
Yeah. Well, even if you were to like reorder the scenes into a format that made a little bit more sense to me, like, still, like, I think it's pretty rotten to the core. Like, having Anthony Michael Hall's character essentially become Trump, you know, this guy who gets up on stage at the beginning of the movie and presents himself as this like charismatic leader of some grassroots fucking, you know, populist movement, but he's actually a buffoon who's misled by a news report and like wants to stoke fear, and, you know, he claims like,
he creates a catchphrase.
Yeah, and he keeps going after this innocent guy, and it's like, oh, well, it's clearly like Trump blaming immigrants. Like, this is like, that was clearly what was going on.
Well, whatever boogeyman you want to say.
Exactly. Yeah. Immigrants are the boogeyman, whatever.
It could be immigrants. It can be anything. It could be Democrats. It can be whatever, you know, whatever you want to say. The point was like, yes, it's very clear that that's what they were going for. Like when he got old Huckleberry off of the wall and put his donation, he's like, love lives today. And then poor fucking Nancy Stevens in this movie, which has to go, but evil dies tonight. And then everybody's like, evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight.
Yeah. And it's the same. It's just such bullshit. And then that scene where they storm the hospital looking for the Umbrella Man, who they all believe is Michael Myers. I'm like, guys, we just lived through a fucking attempted insurrection 9 months ago. Could we?
Sure. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, this predating that and clearly being conceptualized and shot before that happened makes it even like more poorly handled, where it's like, this doesn't understand, like, the commentary changed in between when you made this and when January 6th happened.
And that's, you know, I want to say that's no fault of the movie that it's outdated now, but
that was their choice. Like, they chose to date it that way.
I know.
And that's, you know, something about 2018 Halloween that I loved was like, this didn't feel like it was specifically, you know, commenting on anything in 2018 when they could have. And I certainly saw reads of the 2018 movie that was like, oh, well, now Michael Myers represents Trump. And I'm like, whatever, he's your boogeyman then. Because that's the point, is that the boogeyman can take on whatever form you are scared of. But I didn't feel that intention in the 2018 one, like it was so clearly put into Halloween Kills.
Right. And you and I are absolutely not averse to politics in horror.
Not at all.
We absolutely believe that politics has a firm place in horror. Horror is political.
Of course. I'm not saying you can't make a political Halloween movie, but the one that they did was stupid and dumb and horribly handled.
Yeah, it sucks, man. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. I'm so fucking done with it.
I know. The last thing I want to talk about, and this might be my biggest disappointment, is that the 2018 movie had a great theme. And the theme that I took away was, this is about trauma inflicted upon women and how it becomes generational trauma.
Yes.
That's interesting. That's something worth exploring. And I think that movie explored it extremely well and did a great service to its women characters, you know, except Judy Greer. Everybody talked about, man, don't put Judy Greer in trilogies because she's always going to get the short shaft. Same thing happened within the Apes trilogy. So Judy Greer, it's like, yeah, she was there but she got a great moment at the end of 2018. Gotcha. And then this movie does such a disservice to the Strode women across the board. That none of them are interesting characters anymore. Allison just is a background player who gets swept up in the mob stuff. She doesn't really have a unique perspective on all of that. Any drama that was going on with her boyfriend is completely out the window. He's, you know, just like, hey, I'm really sorry. Come on, let's go get a mob. And she's like, okay.
Allison had potential to be a good character, like from what happened in the first movie.
Absolutely.
But in the second movie, she's just like, I'm a dumb teenager who's going to go out and do vigilante justice with a gang. Like, what? Shut up.
So there's that. Laurie is once again, like in the original Halloween 2, just laid up in a hospital bed all movie.
Fucking sidelined. Yeah.
She completely sidelined. Just gets to pontificate with Will Patton. And their pontification is horrible. Then there's this weird, like, retconned, unrequited romance between them, which sucks.
It's an interesting idea. If they had done it in the previous movie, I probably would have liked it.
Maybe, but again, it's a retcon. Like, it was that wasn't present. It's like they knew each other and they had a dynamic, but it was never implied that there was anything even remotely romantic. So it's like, okay, great. Laurie Strode, one of the great female presences in horror history, gets to get tied to a man for most of the movie. And again, just sidelined. And then Judy Greer, we have to talk about. They kill Judy Greer's character. And it's awful. It's this, like, why? Like, it does such a crime to that character. And to Judy Greer as an actress, who is a great actress.
I know.
And that's what the movie leaves you off on, is like, I killed your daughter, Laurie. Now come and get me. And it's like, oh, great. So
as if she needed any more fucking reason to have a revenge plot against Michael Myers. Like, come on.
And it again makes this weird, unnecessary familial personal tie between them, which has been in previous sequels, where it's like, no, he doesn't need to have anything against Laurie personally. Like, it's just, when he sees her, he knows who she is. And it's like, oh, I got to get you. But that's it. It's Halloween Kills is one of the worst movies I've seen this year. And I'm shocked that that's the case. So we have got to head over to the shelf and pick something that y'all can watch that is better than Halloween Kills. And we need your shelf picks this week. So you need to go to GenreVision.com and comment on the post for this episode with your own shelf picks for Halloween Kills to hopefully give us something else, because this is Halloween Celebration Month and Halloween Kills is trying to kill Halloween. So,
ouch.
So please give us your shelf picks in the post for this episode, and we will mention your shelf picks in next week's episode. Travis, what will you pull from the shelf to hopefully give us some respite from Halloween Kills?
Well, there was this experiment that Netflix did earlier this year with filmmaker Lee Janiak, who made an incredible horror movie called The Honeymoon a few years back. If you've never seen it, it's good, but prepare yourself for some, like, creepy, nasty body horror in it. So, this is a trilogy of films that they made. It's 3 things that are feature length. I hesitate to describe them as films. They are content, really. What it comes across as is a mini series in basically 4 parts, but they've divided it up into 3 movies. By the end of the third one, you're like, okay, the third one was kind of arbitrarily divided up into a movie. But here's the thing. They're pretty fucking good. Like, as a limited series, this exploration of R.L. Stine's Fear Street, really Fear Street attitude, basically, is brought to life in, like, really vivid ways. Like, there's really one sin that it commits, and that it really overuses a lot of needle drops in the first and second films. Other than that, they're pretty fucking good. They have a great cast, a really interesting point of view. They are really well shot. When they want to have laughs, they have laughs. When they want to have scares, they're scary. When they want to have gore, they're really fucking gory. There are kills in especially the first 2 movies that just had dropped my jaw, frankly. I did not expect to like these as much as I did. But by the time I was, like, all in on the third movie, I was like, this did the trick. Lee Janiak directed the hell out of it. They had a really strong vision, and they conceived it as a sort of trilogy from the start. So they knew where they were going. They weren't having to adjust and retcon things between movies.
Right.
So if you want to see a slasher trilogy that is fresh and vibrant and new, but also pays respect to slashers of old, watch Fear Street on Netflix. It's quite good.
Well, I'm going to cop out and pick another Halloween movie. Of course, everybody should watch Halloween 1978, especially this month. It's one of the best movies ever. But the Halloween movie I want to pull is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Halloween 4 has gotten a small but I think deserved cult over the years. It's not one of I'm not saying it's a great movie or anything, but as a Halloween movie, both the franchise and the season, I think it's pretty darn good. And considering what it was handed in terms of directions it could go, I think it does some really interesting things. And some of that is straight up stolen by Halloween Kills. The idea of, hey, Haddonfield gets a posse together to hunt Michael Myers. That's what happens in Halloween 4. They get him. They gun him down and he falls into a mine shaft.
Yep, to survive to go on to the odious Halloween 5.
Of course, but I am a big fan of the ending of Halloween 4, in which this continues the familial, I got to kill my family thing, which I don't
You're talking
like.
about the Danielle Harris character thing?
Yes. So I don't like the familial thing, but the idea being that whatever evil is Michael has now been transferred into Jamie, the Danielle Harris character. And she has dressed up as a clown, which is set up at the beginning of the movie. She feels this like, no, I need to get this clown costume. That's what I want to be for Halloween. It's like, oh, okay. That's something. And where it ends being that she has been inhabited by whatever evil inhabited Michael. Is like, look, it's people don't like those kinds of handoffs because they want the same thing over and over again. But creatively, it's like, that's interesting. And it's a great way to end the movie because it makes a new statement, which the original one is. It's like, you can't kill the boogeyman. It's always going to come about in a new generation in some form.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, they ditched all that in Halloween 5 because that movie didn't want any interesting ideas. And I don't like Halloween 5, if you couldn't tell. And Halloween 4, it's not a badly filmed movie. It's actually a pretty good looking movie. Certainly in the rest of the franchise.
Yeah, it's pretty good from what I remember, except for the bleach white mask.
Yes,
oh my God.
The Michael Myers mask is bad in it, but it also understands how to do silly, fun stuff with Michael while still not feeling like a betrayal of the character. Like one of the best moments in Halloween 4 is Michael gets a shotgun and he points the barrel right down the camera. You're like, oh my God, he's going to shoot somebody. Fuck no, he's not going to shoot somebody. He impales a woman with a shotgun.
He's a stabber.
Yeah, it's like brilliant, wonderful. Like that kind of spirit, I'm all for. And in something like by the time you get to Halloween 4, it's like, yeah, let's have a little fun. And this understood how to have fun with it without turning Michael Myers, the Shape, into just some weird wiki article canon thing. Watch Halloween 4. It's not, I'm not going to get too deep in. Maybe I will in the comments if people want my Halloween opinions, but I'll also probably, I'm going to rank those movies on my Letterboxd account. So you can see that there too. But we do have to head over to the listener shelf picks for last week's episode on Son of Frankenstein. And we have, it looks like everybody's in the spirit of the season and having Halloween handles, which I love to see.
Love them.
Mr. Milk Steak in the Heart had Return of the Fly, which I know I saw, but I don't remember. That is the immediate sequel to the original The Fly, which they did bring back Vincent Price for that one. Erie Johnson went with Colossus, the Forbin Project, which I think is an MST3K episode. JT's evil twin TJ went with an anti-shelf pick of Son of Blob, which I have not seen any of the initial Blob sequels, just the original and the remake.
The only two ones I understand that are worth anybody's time.
That's what I understand as well.
Yeah.
Eric Fuchs went with Intherin, aka Robot, which is that infamous like Indian like Bollywood movie, I believe, where all the robots like come together in a big sphere. And,
okay.
That's one we've talked about doing on the show before. Bacon Lettuce Potato went with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Absolutely. That's a great shelf pick. Watch that, especially with like your kids or something this Halloween. It's fun time. Stabbin' Nesbula. Gotta love. Went with the novel Gladiator by Philip Wiley from 1930, which is widely considered a potential inspiration for Superman. Interesting. I've never read it. I've known about that piece of trivia in connection to Superman, but I've never read it. And Stephen Nesbella, which is reveal your real name, Stabbin' Nesbula. That's good. Yes, I've never read it before, but it was cool because he kind of gave a rundown about it. So thank you, everybody. Love having the shelf picks every week. It's one of my favorite things about GenreVision. And definitely, I cannot tell you how much I am looking forward to the shelf picks for Halloween Kills next week. So we do have some quick calls to action, but stick around because Travis and I have a great update. We saw The Green Knight together, literally together. We were sitting on my sofa and watching it together. And there's some other stuff about that we'll talk about in a bit. You'll also hear our review of The Green Knight. Well, we get to celebrate this week because we have a new rating and review on the Apple Podcast Store. This comes from one of our Patreon subscribers who goes by the handle of Obsolete Vernacular 57 on the Apple Podcast Store, and they gave us 5 stars. Might be my favorite film podcast of the past decade.
No.
Wowzers. And I'm going to say something. Obsolete Vernacular 57 left a beautiful review. It is quite long, so I won't get into everything about it, but they have been a long time listener and just said so much stuff. And I do definitely have to, I have to point this out. GenreVision has slowly but surely become my go-to film podcast, and I'm always waiting excitedly for the new episodes to drop on Sunday morning each week. Keep up the great work, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Apparently we were a pandemic discovery, and they have gone back and listened to tons of these conversations, and it has been a weekly thing, and that never ceases to kind of pull the rug out from under me and try to keep me humble, because it's like, wow, the fact that people enjoy the show and have it part of their weekly diet is something I can't properly say how much I value that. So thank you so much, Obsolete Vernacular 57, for leaving that review. These reviews help us out incredibly. So if you would like to help us out, you can leave a review and rating on the Apple Podcast Store. And if you leave a written review, we will feature it here on the show. You can also join us at patreon.com/GenreVision and become a premium subscriber for just $5 a month. And you'll get a ton of bonus stuff, including the pre-show we did this week. It's kind of actually a post show this week.
Yeah, it expands the conversation that we had about Halloween Kills. If you want to hear that, again, patreon.com/GenreVision. Our reviewer today gets to hear that.
Yes, and if you want to be in that great, awesome club, because we're doing really fun things over at Patreon, it's just $5 a month, and you'll get access to all of our bonus material for all of the GenreVision network of shows. One of the things we did on Patreon recently was in relation to currently consuming. So let's do some currently consuming.
Nom, 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 nom.
Because we did a little video that we put up for our Patreon subscribers about kind of our initial reaction to watching The Green Knight together.
Yeah, we finally saw David Lowery's The Green Knight, an A24 release that kind of had in our opinion, a bit of a bungled release. But
we talked about that in the video. You can hear our thoughts about that there.
But Lionsgate put it out on Blu-ray, and they actually sent you a promo copy, so you and I actually got to watch it on a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray on your new TV.
Yeah,
and that was a fun experience. It's a pretty good movie, actually. From a technical standpoint, it's probably one of my favorite directed movies of the year.
I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah, I had a good. I mean, obviously, part of it was that I just got to hang out with you and watch a movie, and we had a very, very fun time watching it.
Oh yeah,
cracked up a couple times, and not in a dig way against the movie, because like I said,
for good reasons. Yeah, it had some laughs.
Yeah, we quite enjoyed the movie. I will say that as much as I liked it, it hasn't stuck with me as much as I might have thought it would. It's still, I still think it's one of the highlight films of the year, and people should see it.
Yeah, there have been some scenes where I've actually been thinking about them quite a bit as we go on. It's got a good ending. I'll say that it's got a really good ending. I really like the note that it leaves on. I was really into the production design of it. It's really beautiful. The titular Green Knight, played by Ralph Ineson. Oh, incredible.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely. I mean, when we were watching it, I was like, they did it because I can see his silhouette from a mile away.
Such a presence too, man. He's got such a great voice.
Well, and they did a bunch of voice stuff because there's the Green Knight will at times appear or sound like other characters in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a wonderful experience. I mean, it was a wonderful experience watching it with you and getting to, live commentary the movie and have to pause because we were cracking up at, a certain title card. But no, I mean, the movie, it was like, yeah, that was really solid. I had a really good time with that movie. And it did some very unexpected and exciting things, and is definitely a movie worth seeking out and watching before the year is up.
For sure. Yeah, I'd made a joke about it in our Patreon video, calling part of it hipster Game of Thrones. And I was reminded in like the opening act of the movie is like, oh, this is like, you know, there's a lot of like quiet whispering in castle hallways and stuff like that, and dialogue that was a little hard to understand, and you know, there's kind of like a digital, clean, washed out look to it, very dark, very dim. That reminded me of Game of Thrones, and honestly, a lot of those Game of Thrones memories today aren't pleasant, as you might imagine. So I don't feel bad about calling it hipster Game of Thrones.
Fair enough. But watch The Green Knight. Don't watch Halloween Kills. So next week, we're going to jump back up from this, y'all, because next week, we're watching Ernest Dickerson's Bones, starring Snoop Dogg, a movie I've seen, but Travis has not. And Bones is going to get us back in the Halloween spirit. I have full confidence in Bones, and I hope you will too, loyal listener. So check out Bones and come back next week to listen to our episode on it. As always, I want to thank you so much for listening. I'm Drew Deitch.
I'm Travis Newton.
And we will see you next week.
Right here on GenreVision.